Hey everyone, welcome back to Jungkook fans. Today we're diving into a side of Jeon Jungkook that not everyone gets to see, because behind the global fame, the powerful stage presence, and the millions of eyes watching him, there's a quiet truth that fans have been noticing all along. What if everything you thought you knew about Jungkook was only the surface? What if the real story is hidden in the small moments, the subtle gestures, and the way he treats people when no one is really paying attention? This is the side that doesn't always go viral, but once you see it, you won't be able to look at him the same way again. There's something about Jungkook that the world sees, and then there's something deeper, something quieter, that only those who truly pay attention can understand. On stage, he shines with unmatched charisma, his presence powerful, his energy electrifying. Every move feels intentional, every glance captivating millions. But beyond the spotlight, beyond the fame, there's a side of him that doesn't always make headlines. It's in the small moments, the ones that aren't always captured perfectly on camera. The way he listens when someone speaks, the way he bows a little deeper, the way he smiles, not for attention, but out of genuine warmth. These are the details that often go unnoticed by many, but never by those who truly care. Fans have seen it time and time again, his quiet respect, his natural kindness, his ability to make others feel valued without saying much at all. And yet, not everyone understands this side of him. Some people only see the global superstar, the record-breaking artist, the face recognized across continents. They see the fame, the success, the perfection, but they miss the human being behind it all, the one who still carries humility despite standing at the very top. The one who continues to treat people with sincerity, no matter how big his name becomes. There's a reason why fans feel so protective over him, and it's not just because of his talent. It's because they've witnessed something real, a consistency in his character that doesn't change depending on the situation. Whether he's on stage in front of thousands, or in a quiet, candid moment, he remains the same person. Genuine, grounded, kind. You can see it in his eyes sometimes, a softness that contrasts with the intensity of his performances. A reminder that behind the powerful image is someone who feels deeply, someone who gives more of himself than most people realize. And maybe that's why his presence resonates so strongly, because it doesn't feel manufactured, it feels real. But being that kind of person in a world that constantly watches, constantly judges, isn't easy. There will always be voices that misunderstand, that overlook, that fail to see beyond the surface. And yet, he continues, not changing who he is, not losing that quiet sincerity that defines him. That alone says more than any headline ever could. For those who truly see him, this isn't surprising. It's simply who he has always been. Not just an artist admired for his talent, but a person respected for his heart. And maybe that's the part of him that matters the most, the part that doesn't need a stage, doesn't need a spotlight, but still manages to leave the deepest impact. And maybe that's where the difference truly lies, in the way people choose to see him. Some stop at the surface, at the performances, the visuals, the global fame. But others, they look a little closer. They notice the pauses between moments, the subtle gestures, the quiet expressions that reveal more than words ever could. Because with Jungkook, it has never been just about what he shows, but also about what he doesn't. There are countless instances where his actions speak louder than anything scripted. The way he instinctively takes care of those around him, checking in, making sure everyone is comfortable, even when the cameras aren't focused on him. It's not something exaggerated, it's not something performed, it's simply who he is. And that authenticity, that natural instinct to care, is something that cannot be taught or replicated. It's also important to remember the pressure that comes with being in his position, living under constant observation, where every move is analyzed, every expression interpreted. It can easily make someone guarded, distant, or even disconnected. But somehow, he manages to hold on to his warmth. He doesn't let that pressure harden him. Instead, he continues to move with the same openness, the same sincerity that fans recognized from the very beginning. That's why moments of vulnerability feel so powerful. Even the smallest glimpse of his genuine emotions, whether it's a quiet smile, a thoughtful gaze, or a fleeting expression of exhaustion, they remind people that he's human. Not just an image, not just a name, but someone who experiences everything just like anyone else. And in those moments, the connection feels even stronger. There's also a kind of silent strength in him, something that doesn't need to be loudly declared. It's in the way he keeps going, keeps improving, keeps giving his best without demanding recognition for it. He doesn't constantly prove himself with words, he does it through consistency, through effort, through presence. And over time, that speaks louder than anything else. Fans don't just admire him, they understand him in ways that aren't always visible to others. They see the patterns, the sincerity that remains unchanged despite everything around him evolving so quickly. And that's why their support feels different. It's not just based on admiration, but on trust. A belief that the person they see is real. And maybe that's the truth that not everyone will ever fully grasp, that beyond the global phenomenon, beyond the image that the world celebrates, there is simply a person who continues to choose kindness. A person who remains grounded even when everything around him could easily pull him in a different direction. And in the end, that quiet choice, repeated over and over again, is what defines him the most. And if you really think about it, this is what separates someone unforgettable from someone who is just famous. With Jungkook, it's never been only about breaking records or dominating stages, it's about the feeling he leaves behind. The kind that lingers, the kind that stays with people long after the performance ends. Because what he gives isn't just talent, it's a sense of sincerity that audiences can feel, even through a screen. There's also something incredibly rare about the way he connects without forcing anything. He doesn't need to constantly prove his personality, it shows naturally. In the way he reacts, the way he carries himself, even in silence, there's a quiet honesty that stands out in an industry that often feels overwhelming. And that honesty, that unspoken authenticity, becomes the reason why people trust him without even realizing it. Over time, this creates something deeper than admiration. It builds a bond, one that isn't based on perfection, but on consistency. Fans don't expect him to be flawless, they appreciate that he remains real. That even as he evolves, grows, and faces new challenges, he doesn't lose that core part of himself. And in a world that constantly changes people, that kind of stability becomes something incredibly meaningful. There are moments too, where his passion becomes impossible to ignore. Not just in the intensity of his performances, but in the way he pours himself into every detail. It's as if he carries a quiet determination, always pushing forward, always aiming to become better than yesterday. And yet, he never lets that drive turn into arrogance. Instead, it blends with humility, creating a balance that feels both powerful and grounded at the same time. And maybe that's why his journey feels so personal to so many people. Because when they watch him, they don't just see success. They see effort. They see growth. They see someone who continues to move forward despite everything that comes with being in the spotlight. And that reflection, that shared sense of striving and staying true, is what makes his story resonate far beyond music. In the end, it's not just about what the world celebrates loudly. It's about the quieter truths that stay hidden in plain sight. The way he chooses kindness when it would be easier not to, the way he remains himself when expectations could easily reshape him. And those choices, repeated again and again, quietly define who he is, far more than any headline ever could. And that's the story that not everyone talks about, the side of Jeon Jungkook that goes beyond fame and talent, and straight into something real. If this made you see him differently, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Jungkook Fans, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next story, because there's always more beneath the surface than what the world chooses to show.